It's one of the delicious ironies of the mad dash for EVs. It's forcing more and more people to buy dirty old diesel cars. Talk about unintended consequences. But none of this comes as a surprise to anyone who understands that top-down mandates and government central planning has never worked in the past, and I guarantee it will never work in the future. Just think about the farce of compact fluorescent lights, which we were all forced by governments to use so we could get rid of evil incandescent bulbs, only for innovation to stick two fingers up to the bureaucrats and develop LED lights. Cheaper, cleaner, better in every sense, and of course, which the market determined we all now use. There are probably graveyards of millions of old and toxic CFL somewhere, full of mercury vapour and other poisons leaching out into the environment. Great work, guys. The EV mandates are no different. The mandarins think their policies will achieve one outcome, but in fact they achieve precisely the opposite. Will they ever learn? Welcome back to MGUY, British engineer and lawyer, now Sydney-based YouTuber. Be sure to follow me on the usual socials for more content, links in the description, and please make sure you're subscribed and have enabled all notifications so you don't miss out on any future videos. And if you'd like to support this channel, why not buy me a coffee? Click the link in the description or scan the QR code on screen. Believe it or not, diesels were once the favoured fuel for the bureaucratic elites. In 2001, the UK government changed the rules so that diesel vehicles, which emit less CO2 but considerably more particulate matter, were cheaper to tax than petrol cars. So effective was this that the number of diesels on UK roads rocketed from 1 million to 11 million in 15 years. See the article linked in the description for more on this folly. But of course, once it was realised that the particulates are worse for people's health than the completely harmless, colourless plant food gas carbon dioxide, they performed a complete 180 and diesel vehicles were now badissimo, leaving millions of owners with massive losses and huge costs every day to go into London under Sadiq Khan's punishing ULEZ scheme. Sales of diesels had crashed. But now, because of the ill-conceived EV mandates, sales of diesels are picking up again, to the point that they may even overtake EVs. Hilarious. Matthew Lynn, writing in The Telegraph, has all the gory details. Labour's ruinous electric car policy may end up harming the environment. The revival of diesel proves that top-down mandates serve only to exacerbate the climate emergency. Well, it's not an emergency or a crisis. The climate's just doing fine. It does what the climate does all the time, and that is change. It is true to say that diesel cars are among the most polluting vehicles on the road. Few would deny it. Yet this week we see more confirmation that electric vehicles, EVs, touted as the cleaner alternative, may be doing far more harm than good. We knew the minerals needed for EVs damage the environment, and the electricity powering them may produce more emissions than petrol. But now there are suggestions that poorly designed EV policies are unintentionally fueling a surge in sales of big, dirty diesel engines. In short, the obsession with forcing everyone to drive a battery-powered car is backfiring spectacularly and risks massive harm to the environment. It is yet more proof that targets and central planning never work. While most motorists are still unsure whether to make the switch to a battery-powered car or stick with petrol, almost everyone had at least ruled out one option. Nobody wanted a diesel car anymore. They might have come with generous tax breaks 20 years ago, but we have since figured out that, even leaving aside the impact on the climate, if there is any, they are terrible for air quality. Sales of new diesels had plummeted. From a peak of 40% of all the cars on the road in 2017, they fell to 35% of the total by the end of 2023. We were well on the way to phasing them out, yet now they are on their way back. In a letter sent last week to Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor, chief executives of 10 major auto manufacturers, including Volkswagen and Ford, pointed out that flawed EV targets meant that sales of diesel cars were rising again. While corporate sales of EVs remained respectable in September, in the private market where motorists make their own decisions about what they want to drive, sales have stalled, with a rise of just 3.7% to 11,919 units. By contrast, monthly sales of the widely despised diesels grew by 17.2% to hit 9,339 units. It might be November or it might be December, but we are very close to the point where diesel sales overtake EVs. Wouldn't that be the ultimate irony? That pushing EVs has actually saved the highly polluting diesel cars from an almost certain extinction. And don't forget, this is real pollution, of course, particulates and toxins, not CO2, which, as I say, is a harmless trace gas that is quite literally plant food. The article continues. Even by the standards of our net zero policy making, this is bonkers. In reality, the drive to impose EVs on the market, regardless of whether they actually work or are better for the environment, has spectacularly backfired. It is very similar to the way Germany ended up going back to using coal to generate electricity, the dirtiest fuel available, after banning nuclear, one of the cleanest. At this rate, very soon we may well be burning coal to keep warm during the winter, once we figure out the heat pumps don't work, and we don't have any gas because we closed down all the fields in the North Sea. It is an insane way to run a major developed economy. Yes, it is, but when has that ever stopped the net zero zealots? Never. If it wasn't for the mad idea that there is some kind of emergency that we need to act now to save the planet, none of this insanity would be necessary. But it's going to take a long time for the elites in Brussels and elsewhere to realise that the planet's doing just fine and we should stop pouring trillions of dollars into an utterly futile attempt to change the weather.